Welcome to Whispers of Nafsiyah, a space for real conversations on mental health, healing, and personal growth. Thank you for listening in. Just a quick note, what we share is meant to inspire reflection and conversation. For personal guidance, please connect with a trusted professional or scholar. So today we wrap up our Shadi and Struggle series with Sheikh Wael El Zein, exploring gender roles and expectations in marriage, and asking, what do you bring to the table? If you haven't already, be sure to check out Part 1, Growing Pains in Marriage, the Early Years, and Part 2, The In-Law Dilemma, before diving in. Okay, now let's focus on a struggle that many marriages face. There is a statistic that says that 45% of divorce respondents have said that unrealistic expectations have contributed to their marriage ending.
45%?
45%, with 60% of wives reporting that they feel overburdened with household duties, childcare, and emotional labor, and that there's a high level of burnout experienced by women in marriage due to unrealistic expectations.
Interested.
I want to always keep this disclaimer, as we'd said in the other podcast, that these stats are, don't forget, therapy, mental health is highly researched in the Western world.
Is it fair to assume that since the majority of the clients in terms of mental health are women, that's why they base their stats on them, or no? No, I'm
women
actually
generally
genuinely
think.
asking. Is it?
Is that
Is it
no.
fair
So
to
when
say that?
when studies are done,
Yeah.
a study is mostly approved when the sample is generalizable. If the sample is
Oh.
not generalizable, it's very hard for it to get peer reviewed.
Interesting.
So most of the times, now if let's say this was done in gender studies and it was specifically for women, it's
Okay.
different. But now if the study was done in marriage in
In
general,
marriage in general.
it would be done with a sample
Both.
that's more
Interesting,
generalizable.
okay.
Yeah. My studying is in both family and marriage as well as clinical
I
mental
see.
health.
Okay.
So in the marriage part, this is not something that we don't come across. We come across this many times.
True.
But I do want to point out, and you had also mentioned about couples going to therapy when their
Yes.
marriage. I want to always point out, please find a therapist who understands your culture.
True.
Yes? Because when we go
Oh.
to the Western culture, it's not necessarily aligned with our principles, with our religion, or even with our understandings. So please always, I'm letting our audience know, keep that in mind. Keep in mind that these stats are not always specific to Eastern cultures as well.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that at the end of the day, we're here to find solutions. And that's the whole point. The whole notion of these kind of programs is, number one, not just discuss them for the sake of arguments. And number two, not just to say, come and reach a conclusion. Yeah, there's no solution. That's it. Let's just people get divorced. No, we're here to find solutions. I think finding a therapist not only that understands the Eastern culture, but even sometimes understanding your community. It's so important. I know sometimes it sounds harsh. People don't like to listen to reality. For example, if I'm sitting down with a Lebanese couple, I'm going to be totally using a different method than I'm using with the Pakistani or Khoja or Indian or Emirati or a Western or so forth, or converts, for example. You know what I mean? To each their own. The people have their own perspective and understanding. And that's why many Molanas, when they immigrated or they came from overseas, they suffered here. And I don't blame them. I know the community ends up getting mad at them. Oh my God, they got angry. No. He comes from a certain understanding. He grew up all his life looking at a girl doing these things and not complaining. So when you're going to complain in front of him, he is going to think that, oh my God, like, how dare you? No, not how dare you. You have to understand how each person, the background that they come from. So sometimes it's also vital to have Muslim therapists and a person that also is well-rounded in your own culture. You actually have to go back and dig and understand. You have to ask the right questions. You have to understand, like, for example, when a woman is going to feel burnout, it depends from which community she is. Let's say, for example, if I sit down with a woman that is from the, Pakistani community and tells me I feel like that, I'm going to believe everything she says because she probably lives in a house where she has to take care of everyone and she is going to feel burned out. You got my point? I'm not stereotyping. I'm not being racist. I'm just being realistic.
Yeah.
Of course she's going to feel burnt out and I am going to believe her. But some women might sit down in front of me and they're going to feel burnt out because of their career. No, you brought the baggage of your career to home. Now you're losing both. And you're going to have to make a choice. In many cases of the West, the majority of the times they choose their career. No, I'm not saying it's always going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that I will have a hard time saying, okay, now that burnout is, where is it from? Now, is it a feeling? Of course. Now, you can find a solution for it. But then you cannot carry it as a baggage and project it on your husband. I've sat down with people that sometimes you find the roles are distributed perfectly well. If anything, the husband is doing way more even.
I think that's why it's important, like you mentioned, how things are set culturally. I'm going to bring in the NGL that we had. And again, NGL is the not gonna lie responses that were received on our Instagram page, because we asked such a simple question: why is marriage hard? And the responses we got, I think most of them just tied into expectations on both sides. So men's expectations of wives included that the wife should be the cook of the house, be in charge of housekeeping, being the primary caregiver when it comes to raising children, which includes being on top of schoolwork, doctor's appointments, all those kinds of things. That's the mom's job. Financially contributing. Men sometimes expect their wives to financially contribute. Emotional concealment, as in hiding things and keeping things close to your chest, you know?
Financially contributing along with the other?
Yeah. Yeah. Like some men expect their wives to financially contribute to the household. We assume the NGL question responses were from our community, since at that time, most of our following was local. So that's why we felt it was important to kind of mention these. Another one was intimacy on demand, that a man expects his wife to be intimate on demand. And then spiritual leadership, to be that guiding source for the family.
Does he also want it to fly?
So those are some expectations that men have of their wives. And then
Wow.
I think we'll flip it. Let's talk about both. So
So basically, no, wait a second. Let me digest this. I'm trying to understand
No,
that.
I know.
I'm trying to understand that. So you're telling me that the expectations from men of their wives is that they want them to be, let's say, for example, traditional, and they want it to be ready for intimacy anytime, and at the same time cook, and all this I might be able to accept. So basically what you're doing is that you're looking for a traditional woman. Fair enough. But are you a traditional man? That goes both ways. If you want a traditional woman, then you need to be a traditional man. Then she cannot contribute financially along with all these things. No, I'm sorry. In my opinion, no man should, and that's a personal opinion. Judge me on it. I do not believe a man should accept taking money from his wife whatsoever. I do not respect a man that expects that his wife expects. It's one thing that she buys him something or she wants to help out. That's another. Expects his wife to have to be able to contribute financially. That's not a man, in my opinion. Because if you want to expect to be spent money on, then I'm sorry. That's a different story. On the other hand, that's if you expect that. I've had parents that come up to me. So, Maulana, can you find a girl for my son? Okay, what do you want? And they give me the descriptions, and some of them are so unrealistic. And then on top of that, she has to have a job. And I feel disgusted. I'm not going to lie to you. Now, do I say, okay, well, that's your own personal preference. If you accept it, but that's up to you. But do I really respect that? Absolutely not. It's one, as I said, to expect it. No, I'm sorry, I don't respect that. But if it happens, you marry a woman who has a career, alhamdulillah, and both of you help out each other, fine, that's a different story. That's absolutely a different story. But if you want a traditional wife, then you have to be a traditional man. You have to be a traditional husband. You have to be the bread earner only. You have to provide. And then whatever she's going to ask for in terms of, if you want something in return, then you're going to provide for it.
That's actually surprising that you said that that's from our community.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Hussein and Hassan would probably agree with me. Even though we're like that first generation coming from immigrants, from our parents, I think in our community, like the people, at least who I hang out with, I don't think we expect our women to be financially contributing, right? I feel like all the friends I have, they're usually all hard workers. So I'm actually quite surprised. I just wanted to put it out there that that actually came out from our community.
I have something to say. I think the financial contribution expectation is because I think I saw a comment on the NGL where a man said that she expects the trophy wife life, and that puts me under financial stress.
Yeah, I was just going to say that
So
because it
maybe
goes
the
other way.
financial contribution expectation is coming from, hey,
If
if
you
you
want a
want to
life like
live
this.
this luxurious life and afford the Chanels, then you're going to have to pitch in too.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. No, I disagree with that. If you were to ask me personally, no, he needs to tell her, no, we're not living this life. No, you're not buying this. Listen, men need, like I said, I had the example earlier. Many girls suffer from fathers that never know how to tell them no, or even without a father. And never tell them, no, you're not doing this. You are not, for example, staying up late at night or so forth. And it's the issue is that, no, a man needs to be able, have the ability to say, no, this is the illogical way of living. This is not the right way of living, and we're not doing this. Simple as that. It's just not going to happen. Because no logical perspective comes and says that in order for you to form a family, you're going to have to go buy Chanel purses.
So I do think we're losing some of the point in here because this is very culture based. Yes. I think we're making it very much about wealth. And I don't think these are the expectations that women are talking about. I think when I was reading the NGLs, I really felt like women were talking about how everything is left on them. There is so much burden on them, and it is impossible to keep up. And it's not just from the NGLs. I have friends I have seen with my own eyes who don't have that support system. And one of the biggest contribution to healing in mental health is your support system. If you don't have a good support system, nothing works. And now these women, if you're going through postpartum, you're going through so many things, you have, let's say, 3 little kids. No one's expecting your husband to be the main carer, but help, a little bit of help. It is a lot. We live in the West where everything is on the woman. So it is harder for her to do all those things. I don't think it's just financial in terms of luxury. I think that the burnout is really real when it comes to responsibilities as well.
So it's the amount, the load on them.
Yeah,
itself
the
is-
load
yeah.
is so much. She doesn't. The
Even if you
statement.
take like the financial contribution out,
Yeah.
it's still so much that's
Yeah,
still there.
like
Yeah.
if you hear this statement, I have heard it, and I'm sure all girls, and maybe even men will agree with. The woman always says, "I don't remember who I was before this," and it's a very profound statement.
is.
It's a very
No doubt.
sad statement.
Very sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we have to accept. Okay, you want women to do all these things, and that's fine. So these are roles that Allah has given us, and that's fine to be the caretaker, to be all of that stuff. But accept that a woman goes through a lot of changes through every little thing, and therefore they need their support systems as well in place. Yeah. So it cannot just be one way. Like the burden cannot be so heavily on them.
I think our hope is to talk about what Islam says about the
Mm.
roles of a wife and husband. I think before that, Hassan, do you want to just go ahead and share women's expectations of husbands
Yeah.
as well?
And Sheikh, if you could then give us how would we come up with the balance for it?
Okay, so from the NGL, the women's expectation of a husband was mind reading, sole breadwinning, full financial responsibility, equal participation in household duties, prioritizing spouse over parents, social status maintenance, and spiritual guidance.
You know what's so interesting? Have you guys noticed something? Is that with all due respect, I'm really having a hard time digest all those comments. I'll tell you why. I've noticed that, and again, maybe it sounds too harsh, but I feel like there's a lot of immaturity on both sides in this regard. Like there's expectations here that sound like immature, and then there's expectations on this side that also sound immature. What I would say is you make your own bed. In what sense? Is that when you choose a certain lifestyle and your spouse agrees with you on it, then you need to accept it. You can't expect to have your cake and eat it too. I remember there's many times that you would sit down with, for example, a wife, and she's complaining about these things. And I say, well, when you married your husband, were you a person that did want a person that makes 6 figures a year? Said, yes. I'm like, a person that makes that much a year is not going to have time to take you out for dinner. Because I have friends that are well off, and alhamdulillah, they're very financially successful. Men that are into business and finance, everything to them is about how they want to grow their empire. And they're willing to provide as anything they want that their wives want. But the problem is like, you're not going to have that. Unless you accept saying, no, I don't want you to make that much money anymore a year. I want you to make a lot less. No, I can't do that. Well, what do you mean you can't do that? Okay, then you have to make a choice. As much as you find that the Quran and the narrations of the Ahlul-bayt or even dua is all about improvement, self-improvement, changing your status, accepting that you have faults and you need to work on them. The modern science comes and convinces you, no, accept yourself for who you are. And if he or she does not accept you for who you are, that's emotional abuse. And then you have the right to claim that you're the victim in this regard, which is unfortunate. Again, if you want to choose a traditional woman, then you have to be a traditional man. And if you want a traditional man that has all these things, then you have to accept being a traditional woman. Then you have to accept everything in this regard.
Yeah, so I really believe sometimes what happens is social media plays a big role
True.
in these kind of things.
Yes.
So for example, you want your husband to have all the money, to come and help you in the house, to come and, do all these other things. There's no time. People don't consider how much time it takes. If you want to be with someone that's a millionaire, guess what? If his time is in making you financially stable, He's not going to have the
He's not
time
gonna
to
be,
help
no,
you with the
he's not gonna be
kids.
able to do
He's
that.
not going to have the
No.
time to help you clean the house. He's not
But-
going to help you time to go on these vacations.
And if he feels pressured to do these things, trust me, he's looking outside.
Exactly.
He is looking for an alternative already. And if it could be someone for one night, it doesn't matter. But someone that makes him feel like the king he is, because straight up, he is a king. You know why? Because the reality is she doesn't want to be a queen. Do you got my point? Like, she
Exactly.
doesn't want to be. A person that just wants him to help her just because she wants to see him do something at home. When in reality, he's doing everything outside the house. Listen, subhanAllah, you said gender roles. What more beautiful than the words of Ahlul-bayt? Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, when he married Sayyidah Zahra alayhi salam, as Rasulullah sat them down, and then he looked at Fatima and he said, Fatima, your responsibility is that door of the house and what's behind it. And O Ali, your responsibility is what's at that door and what's outside of that door.
MashaAllah.
I think this was really good. I keep giving anecdotes, but I think it really was something that was really good for our marriage, was when there was a point in my life when I accepted that I can't ever handle the pressure of running a household financially the way he can handle that. And he, I think, cannot handle the multitasking and everything that
Oh,
goes
100%.
behind the house. So when you accept it, there is so much power and beauty in acceptance. Yeah. And it avoids all these expectations. It avoids all, because, okay, I've accepted, I cannot, and he can. So he will handle that. He cannot, and I will handle this. So you're 100% right. There is a lot of beauty in that as well.
Totally.
I
There is
think
a lot of
something
beauty.
else-
You're so right.
So I think something else, so like if I look at our own marriage, right? The expectations change as your marriage progresses, okay? Like as in the expectations we had of one another
Yeah.
when we first got married, I was in school full time, he
That's
was
so true.
working, you know?
Mhm.
And then we had kids. You went expectations from 1 kid to 2 kids to 3 kids.
Wow.
All it changes because I feel like a lot of times, you know, people will come to us and say, "MashaAllah, you guys have such a great marriage. Oh my God, Hassan helps so much." And yes, he does. I love it. Alhamdulillah. But we're very honest. It wasn't like that in the beginning of the marriage. Like, don't have these expectations right off the bat. This happened over time. Our roles changed over time because our life changed over time.
Yeah.
Our needs changed over time. And I think that's something that people kind of forget, you know, that things change and your roles and expectations will change with that as well.
Oh, that's very true. You have to understand that, you know, the struggles that you're going to go through is just going to make you a stronger couple. And then, like you said, the more you go through struggles, the less expectations you start having because you've seen them, you've witnessed the struggles on both ends. You go like, man, like, no, I'm not going to expect this from my wife when she went through all this with me. And I'm not going to expect this from my husband when I've seen him, how much he suffered and he tried his best. So, yeah, no, that's true. And again, we go back to, subhanAllah, comes back to contentment, being content, understanding. You know, there's this interesting narration that happened about being content. It was one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. If I'm not mistaken, his name was Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. If I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on it. Long story short, he had a wonderful marital relationship. And then in one of the battles, which was the battle of Mu'tah, where the Muslims, the first time in their history, the Arabs even, the first time in their history, had to face the Roman army. So he was in that military. He came back and he had missed his wife so much. They were so much in love together that they would be an example to be given. And he sat down and then she prepared the food for him. She helped him bathe and so forth. And he sat down to eat. And then he looked at her and he goes like, you have a mole on your face. They've been married. They were married for years. So she smiled. She looked at him, subhanAllah. We've been married for years. You never brought it up. But I guess the yellow woman that you saw made you think of it. So sometimes drawing unrealistic comparisons can really hurt you. So he also smiled in return and he said, I guess so. So he never even noticed that. Sometimes what the eye sees also plays a big role in this regard, you know?
I think it goes back to what Hassan said about social media, right? That's where these comparisons are being made and these unrealistic expectations or even just expectations start being set because of what we see that others have or, you know, what we have in comparison or don't have in comparison.
Being content and understanding that what you have might be the most precious thing that you don't even understand its value, right?
I think it's a happy medium you can achieve as a couple, that everything inside the house will fall on the woman. Everything outside of the house, yes, will fall on him. But when the support is required, then both can play that supporting role.
Totally.
So like, I go to the office twice a week, try to help wherever I can, and, vice versa. So I think the playing that supportive role without really like saying, hey, this is, too much for me, I can't do it. I think it's all about making it easy for your spouse. But also, I know you said that these expectations seem immature, but because they're coming from our community, and I think we have a couple of friends that we know of that go through these things, they're very realistic expectations as well. They do happen in our community. Like we have women who have to take care of an entire household, a nuclear family. So the traditional role, I think, means taking care of your husband and your children. But when other people fall into that category, it gets hard. I think that's where the burnout is.
No, that is definitely not immature. That's absolutely realistic and fair to even complain. And it's unfair that some women are being put in this situation, unfortunately. And then I said it before, like I said in my lecture on Arba'in when I was here. And I said it's not her duty to live up to all those responsibilities that are being thrown on her in this regard. Absolutely not.
So if we were to talk about in Islam, what are the roles and duties of a wife and husband? What does Islam say?
So basically what the religion of Islam expects from a husband is to be the caregiver of the house, and he's the bread earner of the house, and he is the one who supports financially the house, obviously offer emotional support for his wife and so forth. He also has the right to request from his wife not to work if he wants to. That is to say that I will provide for you, but according to my own financial ability. And that has to go back to the beginning of when they first met each other, is that if she was aware of his financial status, regardless whatever it is, be it normal, middle class, poor, it doesn't matter, regardless whatever it is, then in this regard, she had accepted him for that financial state that he is in. So his role in general, and also at the same time, is to lead, be the proper role model. I gave an example about Surah Luqman. Surah Luqman, you find that it is also a surah that is full of instructions. What does Surah Luqman talk about? A father, Luqman, and then giving instructions for his own son, raising him, upbringing him, which tells me what as a Muslim? That also the role of the father is to raise the child. The role of a father is to be the proper role model for the child. And he has to sit him down and teach him and speak to him and be able to raise him, build his personality or her personality. That's his duty. In fact, the scholars, they come and they say there are more than 13 responsibilities that are upon the father, mainly the father, the man. One of them is to pray jama'ah with his children. One of them is to recite the adhan daily in the house. One of them is to purposely let his children see him reciting Quran. One of them is playing with his children. And then you can go on and on and on. So there's so many responsibilities in this regard.
I just wanted to just chime in and kind of say how beautiful it was you brought up Surah Al-Quran and how amazing it is that our religion, we have a lot of the answers. Imam Zain al-Abidin, he has, obviously we know the treatise of rights, right? Risat al-Hukuk, rights of the mother, rights of the father. So it's so beautiful that, that Islam is truly a way of life. So thanks for your points. That's amazing.
One of the most important roles that I find is that it is also a very important trait for a man to also be creative. Be very creative. The key to a woman's heart is an unexpected gift at an unexpected time. Something to be surprising, be spontaneous. Women love a man who's spontaneous. And at the same time, it is the responsibility for a man in this regard to be spontaneous. Someone that is also filled with life in this regard. Make her feel alive. Like you said earlier, some women even got to a point to say, I forgot who I used to be, which is unfortunate, really unfortunate. So also be that leader in that sense, create things, revive the language of love in accordance to what she would adhere to in terms of emotions, right? For example, like live up to that responsibility and then be that person that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he described men in the Quran, he added so much responsibilities, traits, and characteristics to those men. And that's why it is your wajib incumbent upon you as a man to carry that image. You know what I mean? Another thing that I really believe in, I'm a big believer in this. Always maintain your looks for your spouse. And I would say this on both ends. But because men are leaders, I really believe that they need to lead by example in this regard. This is, in my opinion, this is a factor that's been totally brushed off. Meaning you find, and like I said, there are many comfort zones that are dangerous that a couple step in. And one of them is looks. Looks, they don't take care of themselves anymore. They don't go to the gym anymore. They don't watch their weight anymore. And I've set an example one time. Many men sometimes when they step out of the house, they look like GQ. They just walked out of GQ. But then when you go into the house, they look like DQ, Dairy Queen. You know what I mean? The truth is like, no, you need to look good for your wife. Unfortunately, many men, they expect that she's supposed to shower, bathe, look good, take care of herself. But then you can, with all due respect, you cannot take care of your hygiene. You don't take care of your body anymore. You don't look fit. You don't look good. No, you are supposed to. Your intention is a form of ibadah if you are maintaining your looks for your spouse. That's a form of ibadah, right? And that is something totally important in my opinion. So that is one of the main important roles. On the other hand, is to also, like I said, along with, I gave an example about Luqman, raising his child. And if you look into those instructions, you will find out that it's your job to attain, a man's job to attain that level of wisdom, that level of maturity, that emotional intelligence, that to be able to sit down and talk, speaking to your wife. It's so important to do that. Listening and speaking and knowing how to interact. And knowing that sometimes even that silence is important too, right? Sometimes we tend to ruin the mood with a conversation that has nothing to do with anything. No, silence is also important. SubhanAllah, in the beginning of relationships, each one wants to impress the other person. If you keep that alive, I kid you not, this would be so beautiful in a marital relationship. That yes, you do want to impress her, and yes, she wants to impress you all the time.
It's good to know that not all the expectations are unrealistic, since Islam says some of these things are actually the responsibility of the husband or a father in a marriage. Like you mentioned, being the sole bread earner, full financial responsibility, also more involvement as the father of a child, and you mentioned Surah Luqman and how important it is to be more present in raising children, how important the father's role is. You also mentioned being the spiritual guide, being that leader and playing that role in the house, which I think was also an expectation. So it's good to know that some may see these as unrealistic expectations when really they are valid. Maybe not so much culturally, but Islamically, they're actually a responsibility. So that's really good to know. What about for women? What would you say is the role and responsibilities of a wife in the marriage?
We can go on into a lot of details.
Yeah.
Just submit to
But
us. Honestly, guys.
What does Islam say are the roles?
Yeah. So the roles is number one, when it comes to the topic of marriage, when you want to look at a person that you want to get married to, many of us tend to look at traits that are not the proper traits to acquire. The proper traits to acquire is to look for motherhood and fatherhood traits in a person. And if you want to know this, number one, look how a man treats his mom and his sisters. That makes a big difference. And look how a woman treats her father. That makes a big difference. Number one, the role of a woman is to be the secret keeper of the house, because she knows everything and everything will go through her. So one of the rights is that she has to protect and preserve his secrets, not to expose them out and not to ever speak of them outside. One of the biggest mistakes I always say is when a couple, they put down each other in public. Put down each other. This is such a toxic relationship. I don't even understand how can they go back home and sleep next to each other. I don't even understand how they do that. When they go at it and they start attacking each other in public, or even sometimes sly comments. You know what I mean? Like just under the rock comments. So that's one of the roles. And notice how I didn't start with anything of the duties. Because trust me, if you live up to that feminine role, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you with, He would not mind even if you wrap a sandwich for him to eat. You know what I mean? So number one is that preserve the man's secret. Number two, be a supporter. Be a supporter and not a reason for him to give up. Because the majority of the time, some men are giving up. They're just giving up. You just don't want to try anymore. So be a supporter for your husband. Number 3, accept him, yet at the same time motivate him. Do you get my point? Like, understand that at the end of the day, if this is the man that I married, I need to first be content with my choice. And that goes for both, by the way. I need to shut off my desire, my unrealistic desires, and realize that this is the man that I'm going to be spending my life with. And if I don't motivate him to become the man in my eyes that I want him to be, then he'll never be a father. Then he'll be another child. He'll just be a person that lives by himself. And so one thing I'll tell you a secret about men. Men are so good in knowing how to live alone, even amongst 100 people. They can live alone. They can live alone in their own world, in their own mind. They can be around you, but they're not. Trust me, we know how to do that. So that's the thing. 4 is that for her to always show him respect. That sense of respect that makes him feel that, you know what, I am a person who is respected in my own area, in my own house. 5, do not criticize often unless it is constructive criticism. Constructive criticism is needed. It's always good. Always choose the right time. Choose the right time when to speak. Choose the right place. Right? 6, do not bring home someone that will affect your relationship. There's a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ that's so underrated in this regard. It even goes to the extent where he curses, or he even says that a woman will not be forgiven if she brings someone to her house that is affecting her relationship, is wrecking her home, spewing hate. And you know, from my experience, what I noticed is that that very friend that does that is the very friend that will be with your husband after you divorce him. What is the definition of envy? I have a lecture about envy, by the way. It's called Cain and Abel. Okay. And what is envy? Envy is different than jealousy. Jealousy is saying, oh my God, okay, that's nice. You have that? Man, I want the same. Envy is like, no, I want this. I want what you have. And on top of that, I want the loss of what you have. I don't want you to have it. Jealousy is like, oh, you bought it? Okay, I'll buy it. No. Envy is, no, you have it. I want to take it from you. I want to deprive you from it. I want to deprive you from it and own it. You got my point? And that's exactly what ends up happening. You know what I mean? Yeah. And of course, the responsibilities of the house. Always look good for your husband. Look like I'll be very frank and honest and open in this. Look like $1,000,000 for your husband all the time. Look good all the time. Dress well. Fix yourself. Take care of yourself for your husband. Because number 1, it's ibadah. Listen, do you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, again, the difference of, for example, things that are permissible, makruh, mustahab, and being permissible. Okay, what is the best of ibadah that Allah commanded us with? Is salat, isn't it? We spoke about this in Surah Mu'minun. What more better than salat? Do you know that if a woman was praying and her husband desired her, do you know that if she cuts her salat, knowing that it will be qada after, it is considered ibadah for her to go satisfy her husband? Could you imagine that? It's considered ibadah. Fasting. Is fasting in Ramadan, isn't it wajib?
Yeah.
Do you know that I studied this in fiqh even? That if a woman is fasting, and let's say your husband for some odd reason is not fasting that day, he came back from traveling, he was traveling, and he arrived, and it's still the daytime, she's still fasting. Do you know that if he actually wants to become intimate with her, it's okay for her to break her fast? But he has to pay her kafara, and she does have to repeat the day. He has to pay her kafara. Do you understand? Do you know how valuable that is? You understand? Like always, it's just, subhanAllah, the answers are all in Islam. You want them all, they're right there in front of me. What we need to do is honestly have seminars, classes, courses about these things, understanding these things, explaining these things. You know my point? And yes, obedience. But in what sense? The difference between obedience and honor It's like obedience in the sense that when he wants something from her and he is the provider, he is that traditional man, that yes, she does obey him and not disobey him or contradict his decisions when they are the right decisions.
I feel that a lot of women may have this issue where they feel like my husband does not spend enough time with me. Now, in Islam, is there something that says how much time a husband should spend with his wife? Because in today's generation, I feel like men are a lot more involved than previously. Like the amount of time previous generations of men spend with their children was a lot less than what we spend with our kids and wives. But now, the men will go play sports, go gym and so on. But at the same time, spend time. I think today's men are a lot more available. They're doing the chores. They're taking their kids to school. They're helping them get ready. And, sometimes a wife needs help at home. They're mopping. So how do you fix this expectation from the women of men spending all the time with them? Is there a recommendation on how much time or the quality of time you should spend at home with your family?
So I definitely feel like this is something that can go both ways, because I feel the same way a man wants a wife to have time to be intimate with him, despite all those things that she's balancing, a woman needs the husband to have that time for that emotional connection as well. So there has to be that balance, because both of you are carrying an equal burden in that relationship and handling separate things. I think when you have that, the husband's helping, the wife is doing her part, he's doing his part. You may both be overwhelmed, but you both have a need. Her need is that emotional connection or quality time. And your need as a man is usually the intimacy part of it. We mentioned earlier, one of the expectations that men may have is intimacy on demand. So I feel like the wife may have that expectation for the emotional connection and quality time. So there has to be a balance where both of them find that time for each other, despite everything else that they may feel they're already doing or what is already on their plate.
I really actually think what you said nails it in a sense that, it's so true. You know what? You just need to maintain a balance. Now, Islamically, do we have anything that says, oh, spend 1 day and 2 days? No, it doesn't. It's not going to sit down and specify with you. It's something that you want. What if a man is enjoying his time with his wife and wants to lock himself up for a month with his wife? I know people that, they do like to spend time with their wives, whether to even go out or to travel or to sit at home with them and so forth. They would favor that over spending time with the boys. And sometimes it's the vice versa. But what you need to do is that you need to adhere to her right. Like I said earlier, is that you have to give her her right. She has rights over you, right? And there's a hadith by the Prophet ﷺ that says that a man sitting at home around his wife and his children is more lovable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala than anything else that he might do in terms of entertaining activity. You got my point? So yeah, obviously you shouldn't be neglecting your wife totally. And that's it, sitting with the boys or being alone. Because sometimes, what happens, right? We live at homes that almost became like hotels, for God's sake. Sometimes even when you're sitting with your wife, she's on her phone, you're on your phone. I see it all the time. When I go out, sometimes I look at a couple sitting down on a table and each one of them is on their phone. She wants to take a picture of every single bite of food and she wants to post it on Instagram, and he wants to do the same sometimes too. And then they sit down and they take pictures with each other. They're so happy. And that's when you know that they're so miserable. In reality, sometimes they are living separate lives, even though they're right beside each other. Right? So I really think it's what you do when you spend time with your wife, the quality time that you spend time with your wife. And it's not just sitting there. There are many people that I see them sitting with their wives, but they're just quiet. They're staring at the wall. They're not even talking to each other. She's on her phone and he's on his phone. You know what I'm trying to say? So there isn't a time set now. Having that said though, I'll be honest with you on one thing though. Women have a hard time understanding why is it that you can get along so well with your boys. That's true. That's true. And that's why they come and say, why don't you talk to me like you talk to him? Right? You realize that a lot. A man doesn't ask his wife, like, why don't you talk to me the same way you talk to your... No. But a woman does ask him, why do you talk to your best friend? You were just quiet with me the whole time. As soon as your friend called you, all of a sudden you had a million things to talk about, right? All of a sudden you were quiet the whole time. They'll never understand. There's a saying that goes that a woman can never understand the love between two friends. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard. Why? Because there's so many commonalities. Like, for example, who's a sports fan here? Hey, what do you watch? What do you like to watch? Basketball. Okay, basketball, football, soccer. You can sit down. You and I can sit down right now up until tomorrow discussing soccer. You know what I mean? Like, no, that was a move, and this was, and Barcelona needs to make these signings, and Manchester City has a. This is not something that interests you. On the same exact level, there are topics that interest women that we just go, I don't even care. It doesn't even matter to me. So we look at things totally differently. Like, I'll give you an example. How many, I'm sure you guys have been with your husband, like together, or even with your husband, to many weddings, right? You come back from a wedding and I tell you, hey, how was the wedding? Who's it? It was good. Yeah, that's well. But if I ask you, when was the last time you attended a wedding? How was it? Yeah? What was it? You're going to sit down and...
More details.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? You're going to sit down and dissect everything. Yeah, why did she do this and why did she do that? So it's different. SubhanAllah. That's the thing though. They're going to sit down and dissect the event and everything in it. Where you and I can sit down and dissect a soccer match. You know, my mom tried watching a Barcelona match with me one time. I was going to forget the fact that she's my mom. I was going to literally like kick her, like, okay, mom, like, we need to end this relationship. That's it. You know what I mean? Yeah, because she's like, why didn't they count the goal? I'm like, it's offside. But why is it offside? What do you mean it's offside? He just scored it. Well, don't you say that in football, if he scores the ball in the back of the net, it's a goal? Ya Allah. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. So
For me, it's politics. I love politics.
You do like politics? No way.
When I tell her about it, she's like, stupid information.
No, I'm saying I give you a 10-minute time a day.
Women can never find politics interesting.
Yeah.
But then I still give him the leeway to talk to me for 10 minutes, but then past that, it gets boring.
Okay, then don't talk to her about
I
politics.
don't stop.
Can we agree on one thing, Mrs. Therapist? Can we agree on one thing? Is that this is the main issue? Is that women want the cake and they want to eat it too?
I already told
The
them
fun-
that her problem is, it's not that I don't want your time. I want your time. I don't want that topic. He doesn't want her drama.
So look, I'm into politics, right? So let's say I read some news, something's happened, right? Now I want to share this. So I'll share with her. If I see there's no interest, I look at my dad and I see interest from him, I'll update him. And she'll be like, oh, this again.
Sheikh, you and us mentioned the balance, and with helping the wife at home. Beginning of marriage is very difficult, right? So people fight, and you get to grow. We got married really young. I was 22, she was 20, and we pretty much grew together. But I think what helped us in our marriage, like for example, when I would come home from work, right, and especially when we had a kid, we kind of understood that, hey, we need our me time first. We need that time to kind of compose down. And then I was able to, hey, let me help you with this because you've been with our son the whole day. And then what we did was when I was helping her with chores, I made that our quality time too. And we do this a lot. We talk about our day, but we're getting chores done at the same time. So it's not like something that it's not that I'm doing it for her, but I'm also, no man likes to do chores. At least I don't, right? But I'm trying to make it a positive thing. And I think I really respect her for making me think to be of more positive than negative. Because I look forward to those days when I come home now to help her with washing the dishes, for example. Because we talk about her day. She tells me about her school. I talk about my flights or, my work. So I think it creates a good balance, if you kind of change the mindset. Because in the beginning, that mindset wasn't there, right? It was like, oh, I have to do this. You know what I mean? So
When he had to tell me that he needs downtime when he comes home. So I think it came down to that communication because I didn't know that this is what he needed. As soon as he'd come home, I'd be like, here's your son. I need 5 minutes because I've been with a kid all day long. I just need a little bit of time. Then he was like, I've come from a day of work. I need that 5 minutes to calm down and decompose himself. So I think it's the same way it goes down to transparency, right? So I think that comes back to the same thing. Giving your hard no's, hard yeses before marriage, talking about the important things ahead of time,
Totally.
and conflict resolution before you make any big decisions
Totally.
like marriage. You have to see what you're going into. And yeah, I think respectfully, I think there is stereotypes that are already inbuilt in our culture that we are now seeing because the millennial generation is breaking that trauma, that's trying to break it. So these are things that maybe our parents or their parents didn't see before, which I think does add into it. I definitely think there is a change coming. It's a positive change. And hopefully the goal is to break that trauma. So inshallah, that is something that we can keep striving towards. I think we've covered a lot in this discussion about marriage.
And I wanted to take a second to thank Sheikh Wael for taking the time out to sit with us and share his wisdom. We truly appreciate it.
First of all, what I would end with is that I did not expect this to go for this long. But mashallah, you
So
guys brought that. Oh, no.
Yeah.
I mean, subhanAllah, I have to admit, you brought the best out of me. I mean, your questions were remarkable. I do understand even why sometimes they were repetition is because at the end of the day, this is what you're getting. This is what you're dealing with. I think the work that you're doing is remarkable. Please, I would really advise you to make this more public and more people involved and try to reach out to the community to help out more. If you have the ability to be able to lead in such a way, mashallah, then have the ability that even if people that right now from your generation, if they're not being able to change their state, then you can influence the others, the youngsters, the younger boys and girls in the community. Educate them, make them more aware of their rights. One of the biggest things that I think we lack in our community is that they step into a marriage without knowing their rights. They don't know what their rights are, and this is really unfair for them. So inshallah, you'll be able to influence them. Inshallah, you'll be able to have a very positive effect on them. And wonderful work.
Thank you so much, Sheikh. We really appreciate that. And you are right. That's definitely something we have to focus on more. Educating the younger generation in our community about their rights, both as a husband and a wife, and the roles that they play in marriage. So inshallah, that's something that we can continue to do through this committee and through our podcasts. We truly appreciate you being here. And for our listeners, we hope that you gain something meaningful from this conversation. If you have thoughts, questions, or topics that you'd like us to cover in the future, we would love to hear from you. So feel free to reach out to our team at any time. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Whispers of Nafsiyah and to stay connected for updates on all our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time, inshallah.